Here is what you need to know before we start. The coin she is selling does not exist. There is no blockchain behind it. There is nothing to mine. To understand how this works, you have to understand the feeling it was built on. It is a very specific feeling, and you have almost certainly had it. It is the feeling of being late. By the middle of the last decade, everyone had heard the Bitcoin story. The man who bought 2 pizzas with coins that would later be worth a fortune. The quiet co-worker who put in a little money early and somehow came out the other side rich. You heard these stories at dinner tables and in break rooms, and under them, for most people, was a small and private ache. I heard about that. I could have. I didn't. The door opened and I was standing in the wrong room. Now imagine someone you trust tells you the door has opened again. Not Bitcoin, you missed that, but the next one, earlier than Bitcoin was, before the crowd arrives, and the person telling you is not a stranger on the internet. It is your sister, your coworker, the man you see every week at your church. They are not trying to trick you. They believe it completely. They are already in, and they look happy, and they want this for you. And at the center of all of it is a woman who looks like living proof. Ruja Ignatova, a German citizen, born in Bulgaria, a doctorate in law, a background, by public accounts, at one of the most respected consulting firms in the world. She does not look like a scam artist. She looks like the most credentialed, most composed person in any room. And she is telling you, warmly, that she found the future before everyone else did, and that there is a seat for you. She called herself Dr. Ruja. The press would later call her the crypto queen. She built that image with great care. The galas, the magazine spreads, the stage in that London arena. And she understood something most people never have to put into words. People do not really buy a product. They buy a story about who they will become once they own it. She was not selling software. She was selling the version of you that got in early. And everything around her was built to answer the only question that really matters before a person hands over their money. Can I trust this? So the events were lavish. The stages were enormous. The branding was clean and confident and everywhere at once. When a thing arrives with that much polish, a quiet assumption forms in the back of your mind without your permission that somewhere, someone serious must already have checked. Surely a regulator, surely a bank, surely all these thousands of cheering people would not be here if it were nothing. The Polish quietly does the work that the proof never had to do. You stop asking where the coin is, because the room is too bright and too full and too certain for the question to feel polite. The product was called OneCoin. It launched in 2014, run out of an office in Sofia, Bulgaria, by Ruja and a co-founder named Sebastian Greenwood. And the machinery underneath it was the cleverest part of the whole thing. Clever enough that you should understand exactly how it worked, because it is the same machinery being used on someone, somewhere, today. You did not, at first, buy a coin. You bought an education. OneCoin sold packages, trader courses, learning material, and each package came with tokens. The tokens, you were told, could be used to mine new OneCoins, the way a real cryptocurrency is mined. The bigger your package, the more tokens, the more coins you would supposedly earn. The smallest package cost about 100 euros. The largest ran into the tens of thousands. And every level you climbed made the next level feel like the smart, obvious move. Then came the part that turned a product into a fire. You were not just allowed to bring other people in, you were paid to. Recruit a friend, earn a commission, recruit a friend who recruits a friend, and earn from them too, down through the levels beneath you. There is a name for a structure shaped like that, where the money comes mostly from the next people in, not from anything the thing actually makes. We will get to that name, but from the inside, it did not feel like a structure at all. It felt like a community. It felt like belonging to something early and important. And think about what that does to a person quietly, without their noticing. The moment you put your own money in, you want the coin to be real. That is human. But the moment you bring in your brother, your best friend, your mother, now you need it to be real. Because if it is not, you have not only lost your own money, you have led the people who trusted you off the same cliff. At that point, doubt is not just frightening, doubt is unaffordable. And it spread the way fire spreads. not in a straight line, but outward, in every direction at once. A man brings in his whole office. A woman brings in her congregation. A village in one country hears about it from a cousin in another. There were rooms like the one in London and city after city on several continents, each one packed with people holding up their phones to film the woman who had found the future. To stand in a room like that and say, wait, was to be the only cold person at a warm party. Almost no one can do that. It is not a flaw in those particular people. It is a fact about all people, and the scheme was built on knowing it. This is the engine of the whole story, and I want to slow down here, because it is easy to feel superior to these people, and that feeling is the most dangerous thing you can bring to this film. They were not idiots. They were nurses and taxi drivers, and shopkeepers and retired teachers in dozens of countries doing the exact thing the modern world tells us to do. Get in early. Trust the expert. Do not let fear of risk be the reason you stay poor. The journalist who investigated this most closely said the real genius of it was joining the dream of crypto to the machine of recruitment, so that every believer had a financial reason to keep believing and a financial reason to shut down anyone who doubted. So when the warnings came, and they did come, they did not land on calm, open minds. They landed on people who had already stood up at family dinners and told everyone they loved that this was the way out. To those people, it's fake was not a piece of information away. It was an attack on the best decision of their lives and on the friends they had brought with them. By 2016, OneCoin was a global event. The woman in the red gown filled arenas. The faithful wore the brand and spread the word and counted their growing balances on a screen. And in that same year, a small number of people, a very small number, finally asked the one question the whole thing could not survive. Not is this a good investment? Something simpler and far more dangerous. Where exactly is the coin? To see what they saw, you need one plain idea, and then the rest of the story falls open. A real cryptocurrency is, underneath everything, a list. A record of who owns what, copied across thousands of independent computers so that no single person can quietly rewrite it. That shared record is the blockchain. It is not a detail. It is the entire point. It is the thing that means you do not have to trust the person selling it to you. You can simply check. So a few technically minded people asked OneCoin the one reasonable question that follows from that. Show us the blockchain. Let us see the record, the way we can see Bitcoins. And the answer that came back again and again was never quite an answer. It was a slide, a promise, a reason the real thing was not available to look at just yet. Here is what the US government later said was behind that curtain. And from here, I am no longer guessing, because OneCoin's own co-founder, Sebastian Greenwood, would eventually stand in a courtroom and plead guilty. Prosecutors say, and Greenwood admitted, that there was no real blockchain at all. The coin was not mined. Its supply and its price were simply decided by the company. Numbers in a private database that OneCoin alone controlled. The price only ever went up because someone made it go up by typing. There is a detail here that I cannot get out of my head. A blockchain developer from Norway later said that OneCoin had once tried to hire him to build them a blockchain, to build quietly and after the fact the very thing they had already been telling millions of people existed and was making them rich. He said the operation ran on an ordinary database, the unglamorous kind of software that might track a warehouse's inventory. The future of money was a spreadsheet that only its owners could edit. And it gets colder. Prosecutors say that internally, the founders knew exactly what they had, that they handed out coins that did not exist even on their own private ledger, and that in their own messages they referred to them, these are the words prosecutors quote, as fake coins, that the whole story of mining was, in one message they cite, a story we can sell to the members. I am telling you what prosecutors say they found in writing. I want to be precise, because precision is the only fair thing here. A court has never tested those particular words against Ruja Ignatova, because Ruja Ignatova has never stood in that court. We will come to why. And from the inside, none of this could be seen, because OneCoin had built a world with no exits. You could watch your balance climb on a company screen, and the number only ever went up, because the company set the number. You could not really sell. You could not move your coins out into an open market and discover what a stranger with no stake in your hope would actually pay for one. The value was a figure on a dashboard, and the people who controlled the dashboard were the people selling you the dream. To the believer, that rising number was the proof. It was, in fact, the single cheapest thing in the entire operation to produce. And it was not only a handful of engineers and journalists raising their hands. The people whose entire profession is to catch exactly this were watching, and they acted. In 2016, Britain's financial regulator put out a public warning about OneCoin, a formal official notice to ordinary people. Be careful with this. And then, less than a year later, that warning quietly came down. The BBC reported it was taken down after pressure from OneCoin's lawyers. Sit with that. A government warning meant to protect the public, removed. Germany's regulator went further and harder. In April 2017, it ordered the OneCoin operation to dismantle its trading system and to stop selling in Germany immediately. Not advice, not a caution. An order from the financial authority of one of the most serious economies on earth telling this thing to shut down. So look at the whole board now. The engineers are saying there is no coin. One national regulator has publicly warned its citizens. Another has ordered the thing dismantled. By every outside measure, the alarm is not subtle, it is screaming. And through all of it, OneCoin keeps growing. New members, bigger arenas, more money in. How is that possible? Because of the engine we built in the first half of this film. Remember it, because this is the hinge of the entire story. The believers were not bystanders to the warnings. They had been paid in advance to fight them. To a true believer, a regulator's warning was not evidence to consider. It was proof that the frightened old establishment was trying to keep ordinary people out of the next great fortune. The skeptic was not a friend bringing hard news. The skeptic was an enemy of your future and of the friends you had brought in beside you. One of those skeptics was a woman in Scotland named Jen McAdam. She had put money in, her own, and money bound up with people she loved, after a friend she trusted brought her aboard. And when the first doubts reached her, she did the thing that almost no one in this entire story did. She actually went and looked. She read OneCoin's own materials line by line. She asked the questions and followed the answers down to the place where the answers ran out. And she came to a conclusion, and then she said it out loud. There was no real coin under any of it. For saying that, she was not thanked. She got the other thing. The thing you get for trying to wake people from a dream they have already paid for and sold to their families. She was attacked by the very people she was trying to warn, but she kept saying it anyway. So did a small number of journalists. And here's the part that should genuinely disturb you, because it is the moral center of this whole story. By this point, the truth was not hidden, the blockchain was not there, and you could find that out. The regulators had warned in public, in writing, with their names attached. None of it was secret or hard or expensive to discover, and none of it stopped the thing, because the desire for it to be true was simply stronger than the willingness to check. The lie did not win by hiding the truth. It won by making the truth feel like an insult. And watch how the company answered the doubt, because the answer is the tell. When people asked to see the blockchain, OneCoin did not show them a blockchain. It announced bigger events, new packages, grander promises about the day the coin would finally be tradable everywhere. A day that kept sliding forward, always a few months out, always just past the horizon. A real thing answers a hard question with evidence. This answered every hard question with more spectacle, more momentum, one more reason to recruit before the price supposedly rose again. That acceleration was not a sign of health. It was the sound of a machine that could not afford to slow down, because the moment it stopped, the people already inside would start asking to take their money out, and there was nothing underneath to give them. And then, in the autumn of 2017, the woman in the red gown did the one thing that no amount of belief could explain away. She disappeared. On the 12th of October 2017, prosecutors in New York filed charges against Ruja Ignatova and a warrant for her arrest. They filed it under seal in secret, where she was not supposed to be able to see it coming. About 2 weeks later, on the 25th of October, she boarded a flight from Sofia, Bulgaria to Athens, Greece. And there the documented trail of the crypto queen simply stops. No confirmed public sighting since. Whether she somehow knew the sealed charges existed, no one has been able to prove. But the timing reads like a sentence with the last word missing. Charged in secret, gone within 2 weeks. And then nothing. Now go back to that arena one last time. Every promise made from that stage is still out there, alive in the accounts of millions of people who were told they were early, told they were chosen, told they were not too late, and the woman who made those promises is gone. And the coin she promised was never, at any moment, anything at all. When the United States government finally laid the numbers out, the scale was almost too large to feel. OneCoin's own records, they said, showed more than 4 billion euros in sales in just 2 years. More than 3 million people had put money in. Over $4 billion paid into a coin that did not exist. Try to make that human. That is not a statistic. That is 3 million dinner table conversations that ended with someone saying, "Trust me." And those people did not get to disappear to a beach somewhere. They stayed exactly where they were, with a hole where the money used to be. Some had put in their savings. Some had put in money meant for a child's school or for the years when they would be too old to work. Many of them never fully understood what had happened because the friend who brought them in did not understand it either and could not bring themselves to say the word out loud. That is the particular cruelty of a scheme built on people recruiting the people they love. The wreckage does not fall on strangers. It runs straight down the lines of trust, family by family. And the people who built it did not all vanish with her. This is where the story stops being an accusation and becomes simply the court record. Her co-founder, Sebastian Greenwood, was caught, pleaded guilty, and was sentenced to 20 years in prison. An American lawyer named Mark Scott was convicted by a jury of laundering around $400 million of OneCoin's money and sentenced to 10 years. He has appealed. Her own brother, who ran the company for a time after she left, pleaded guilty and cooperated with prosecutors. One by one, the people who had stood near the throne were tried and convicted. The throne itself stayed empty. In 2022, the FBI added Ruja Ignatova to its 10 most wanted list. For a time, the only woman on it. The reward for information leading to her now stands at up to $5 million. And as this film is being made, it has not been claimed. She is still out there, charged, accused, wanted, but never caught and never tried. In the eyes of the law, that matters, and we will honor it. She is not a convicted criminal. She is an open question with a passport. Some reports have guessed at her ending, that she was killed not long after she vanished. It is unproven, and I will not pretend otherwise. The FBI has said it works on the assumption that she is alive. The honest answer is the uncomfortable one. No one watching this knows where she is. This story does not have a last page. It just has a place where the trail goes cold. And now the thing I promised you at the very start, the reason the easy question was the wrong one. You were never asked to laugh at the people in that arena. You were asked to sit inside their hope for half an hour. The early door, the second chance, the trusted friend who is already in. If anywhere in the last half hour some small part of you understood why they wanted it to be true, then you have just felt in your own chest the exact force that moved $4 billion into nothing. That wanting is not stupidity. It is the most ordinary human thing there is. And it is the precise thing that every lie like this one is engineered to use. Years later, the United States government opened a process to pay OneCoin's victims back out of a pool of seized money that is a tiny fraction of everything that was lost. A few cents in the end against the dream they were sold. The nurses and the drivers and the retired teachers will get a little of it back. The arena will never refill. There was no coin. There was no blockchain. There was a woman in a red gown, a feeling that almost all of us carry, and a room full of people who did not want to check. The most expensive thing in this entire story was never the money. It was the unwillingness to look. She is still out there, and somewhere right now in some other room with better lighting and a newer word for it, someone is being told about the next sure thing, the early door, the second chance, the one you would be a fool to miss. So here is the only question that was ever really worth asking. Not how could they? How late are you willing to be? To be sure,